Okay, perfect. I think we have everyone here. So hello everyone and thank you for joining us. My name is Mandeep Mahal and I'm one of the MBA recruitment and admissions managers in the MBA team. And I'm delighted to be here today to speak about the Laidlaw Scholarship in partnership with the Laidlaw Foundation. So today I'm going to give you some information on the Laidlaw Scholarship, how to apply and the opportunity that the scholarship will bring, but also most importantly, you're going to hear from 3 of our incoming scholars who will be embarking on their MBA this September. And I'm really excited to be joined by Lice, Lucy and Charity, and they will be on soon to introduce themselves. We do hope to have some time for questions, and any questions that you do have, please do use the Q&A function to submit them. But feel free to say hi and where you're dialing from in the chat. We would like this session to be as interactive as possible. So I'm going to give you some information about the Laidlaw Scholarship, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch my camera off just for the time being so you're not distracted by my face, but I will be back on camera later with the scholars. Okay, so to get us started, you can see this quote from the CEO of the Laidlaw Foundation. And what I think is important to take from this quote is, while it's 2 parts, is the extraordinary women and then who would not otherwise be able to afford an MBA. So we are looking for exceptional talent who want to lead in a responsible way and ask some of those big questions. So on the MBA, we do have a focus on impact, responsible business, leading with a purpose. But what's great about the Laidlaw Scholarship, that it's also focused on those who would not otherwise be able to afford an MBA. We know MBAs are an expensive investment, and it's great to have a scholarship that not only looks at merit-based academic achievements, but those who could not do this otherwise. And that's a big element of the Laidlaw Foundation. So for the purpose of the Laidlaw Scholarship, so Laidlaw are looking to advance younger girls and women. And if you haven't done so, I would encourage you to have a look at their website. They have some great resources on there. They are not only working with business schools and MBAs, but also younger girls at college and school level. Lord Laidlaw describes his mission, and what drove him to start this scholarship was that he worked with a lot of women in leadership positions in his organisations, and he saw the success of his organisations that had gender balance. And we know that there is a lot of research and reports that organisations who have that balance do better. So this really is the root of that, and it's not about checking a box and having parity to reach a statistic. This is about women going into those leadership positions, the opportunity this affords to women who might not otherwise applied or considered an MBA. So they can go ahead and reach that higher level of leadership, those higher level roles that they want to get towards. The Laidlaw Scholarship has been running with other schools globally for 5 years, so there is a considerable network of other Laidlaw scholars from other business schools globally. And actually, you can see in this picture, this is our scholars. These are our inaugural scholars who they're actually coming towards the end of their MBA. And this was at the welcome dinner that we had in October last year. Okay, so if we get into the details of the scholarship, so there are up to 8 awards, and they range from 31,000 to the full fee, and that would be the full MBA tuition fee, so for the year that you're applying to. So if you are applying for our 2023 entry, that would be 71,540, so covering your academic fees. And the criteria for the scholarship is made up of different parts, and you're being assessed on different elements, different parts by the scholarship committee. So we are looking for academic excellence. I think that goes without saying. It is the University of Oxford that you are applying to, and we are looking for that in your MBA application. So we are looking at your undergraduate degree, your GMAT or GRE. I'm not going to go into the details of the application requirements for the MBA in this webinar. We do have an application tips webinar. I believe it is tomorrow, actually. I think it's 1:30 p.m. UK time, where you can find out more about the MBA, the requirements, the tips about, get some top tips in terms of crafting your application, and also have the opportunity to have your questions answered. So do have a look out for that. You can view that event on our website and register your details for that. But what I will say is that we do look at applications holistically. So you can certainly look to balance those two criteria, the degree and the GMAT. And we don't have hard requirements. We advise what is competitive, but there is a balance. So if you're dialing in today and let's say one element of your application, your profile, so let's say your degree, your bachelor's degree is slightly lower, then you can certainly look to balance that with a slightly higher GMAT or GRE and vice versa. You can also show excellence through previous university awards, prizes, and other degrees beyond your bachelor's. So if you have a master's degree or any other qualifications. So demonstrating that financial need, and there is some detailed guidance available when you're applying to the scholarship. And we're asking you to complete some information about your household income, and that's people you're living with, people in your household that have a part in your outgoings. We're asking you about financial responsibility and if you have any dependents, and that isn't just dependent children, that could be parents or a sibling or any financial responsibility that you have. And then we're asking you to demonstrate leadership potential, commitment to gender equality, and leading ethically. The scholarship application will ask what you have done or currently doing to support women, gender equality in your career, and also as a Laidlaw scholar, how you plan to support women and develop female leaders. I would say the committee are really looking for people who already have made steps to support women previously and want to continue and expand on this work. We are looking for people who can clearly demonstrate what they are doing in this space. So how to apply? So you must submit both your MBA application and your scholarship application at the same time. So this is really important. So just to give you an example, let's say you're working on your MBA application and you're ready to submit. Let's say by the end of this week, there may be some of you dialing in today who are targeting our stage 1 deadline, which is next week on the 31st of August. So let's say you submit your MBA application on that date, and then maybe you think, oh, I can complete my Laidlaw scholarship application at a later date because it needs to be in by the 4th of January 2023. So you may think, oh, let's look at that a couple of weeks or a month later. I'm afraid that won't be applicable and you won't be considered for the scholarship. This is really important. You need to submit both applications at the same time, and they both need to be submitted by the stage 3 deadline, which is the 4th of January 2023. So really make sure you take that into account when you're working on your MBA application. So of course you want to put your best foot forward and you want to take time with your MBA application, and that's also with your scholarship application as well. So they both need to be in at the same time, and they both need to be in by our stage 3 deadline. I hope that's clear, but I'm happy to clarify that and take any questions later. Applications for the scholarship will be reviewed after each stage, and candidates will be informed at each application stage if they have been successful in being shortlisted. And final shortlisting will take place in March, and interviews are expected to be in April. There is an email address on the slide now, and if you have any questions about the scholarship, please do get in touch with us via that email. That does sit with our funding team, and they are able to answer any questions that you may have about the details of the Laidlaw scholarship application and process. So in terms of some of the opportunities that the scholarship brings, it's a growing network, so network of other Laidlaw scholars from other schools. So I know actually from our current our current class, our current scholars. I know they've been able to connect with scholars from London Business School. So it really gives you a lifelong network across industries and not just globally as well. There is an annual dinner with representatives of the Laidlaw Foundation, Said faculty, and I say previous scholars. So actually, from this picture, you'll see them are inaugural scholars with Lord Laidlaw. And as we go through with the number of years, I know that previous scholars will also be invited. And this dinner does take place in Trinity term. Throughout the year as well, there would be other sort of scholar meetings, scholars lunches, where you'll be able to have lunch with other members from the business school side faculty, with the MBA program director. And then also as a scholar, you do get invitations to the business school and side events. Okay, so we're getting to the exciting part now of the presentation, and you will get to hear from some of our scholars. So actually, if I can invite our scholars to come on and turn their videos on, and I'll also do the same. So great, I think I can see, yes, they're all turning their cameras on. Okay, great. So so I'm delighted to be joined here today by Lice, Shruti and Lucy. So these are three of our incoming scholars who will be starting their MBA this September. So they are still fresh in terms of the MBA application process, as well as the Laidlaw scholarship application. So it's a great opportunity to be able to hear from them, hear what they've done and how they've approached their Laidlaw scholarship application. They have all done different things, and I come from different corners of the globe and have different stories to tell. So if I can just invite you all just to introduce yourself and just say a little bit about what it is that you were doing sort of prior MBA. So Lice, if I come to you first.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So I am from Brazil. I have been working in social entrepreneurship for the last 7 years, leading an organization called Leader of Light, which takes solar lighting to communities that don't have adequate access to electricity. That's it.
Great, thank you. We'll come over to you next, Shruti.
Hi everyone, my name is Shruti. I'm originally from Delhi, India. I ran a sustainable foods venture for 3 years, and yeah, I'm an entrepreneur.
Perfect, thank you. And then Lucy, over to you.
Hi everybody, happy to be here. My name is Lucy. I'm a Ghanaian, currently in Ghana at the moment. I'm a geologist. I studied geological engineering. I work in an oil and gas company. I have most of my career, and I'm really excited about talking to you guys and hopefully inspiring you to put in your application to Oxford.
Great, thank you, Lucy. So I do have some questions for the panel. So questions that are going to be around their application, their story. So hopefully to give you a taste and for you to see if it's something for you and if you have a strong case. So you can hear from the panel on what made them stand out. But also please feel free to submit any questions that you have to our amazing panelists, and we can ensure that we have some time for those afterwards. But to begin with, I'm going to start with you, Lucy. So Lucy, in your Laidlaw scholarship essay, you speak about that you have a vision to create a network of female leaders in the energy sector. So I think to promote interest, but then also to develop effective female leadership. So how do you plan to go about this and use the Laidlaw scholarship and the benefits?
Well, thank you, Mandeep. So yes, that's right. I mentioned in my scholarship that was a vision. Actually, it's something that we've started here in Ghana. I mentioned that I was the president of what we call the Petroleum Ladies Association, which is a group of women in the oil and gas industry in my company. We come together and network and really aim to support each other and create advocacy for females. I'm also now a founding member of Women in Energy Ghana, which is a bigger platform that includes women, not just from the oil and gas sector, but also from the power, various sectors under energy. And there we are building a database where we plan to help young women, as you said, introduce them to the sector, get them interested in the sciences, but also to encourage them to go for leadership roles. And what I mean, because I think, Mandeep, you said that there's a business case for diversity in the boardroom as well as even in executive. So the companies understand this, and serious companies are currently looking to bring in more women. So what this organization is seeking to do is to prepare these women for these roles, because as a woman, I understand that we tend to self-disqualify ourselves, and we see a lot of our leadership style as a weakness, whereas we could embrace that, and that is actually something that makes us excel in our roles as leaders. So it's really to build that sort of confidence, to help deal with that sort of stereotype, so that they are prepared for when the companies come to do the interviews. Because really, to create change, we need to have a critical mass of women in certain leadership positions to create that change. That's what you're seeking to do. Hopefully that helps.
That's great.
And yeah, your second question was how to use the network, the Laidlaw network.
Yes.
Now, I understand from the reading that Laidlaw has other scholarships for students in other business schools. And I'm hoping that getting access to amazing women like Lies, like Shruti, drawing from their experiences, inspiring each other, collaborating, and drawing from them to come and support the vision that I have is going to be something that's going to be beneficial indeed. So I'm really looking forward to that network, that goes beyond even the Said Business School. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Thank you for answering that question. And yes, it's great to hear in terms of some of the work that you've been doing. And I think it's very interesting that you mentioned about, I think that's something in terms of when it comes to females, sometimes you discount yourself when it comes to going for some of those leadership positions. I think that's really sort of what this scholarship is about, is thinking about its empowerment and sort of really thinking about how you can take your career to the next level. So no, that's great. Thank you, Lucy. I will come over to you next, Lice. So Lice, you mentioned that you are the founder of Leader of Light Sao Paulo and the president of Leader of Light Brazil. So in fact, I think the audience would like to hear a bit more just about your social venture, but then also how do you think the MBA and the Laidlaw network would help you to expand your social venture?
Sure. So again, like what we do at Leader of Light is to take solar lighting to communities that don't have access to electricity or adequate access to electricity. So we take solar street lights or solar hand lights made of simple materials like plastic bottle, PVC pipes, besides solar panel, battery, LED lights. And we build the solutions with the residents so that the knowledge stays in the local. So we have been doing this all over Brazil, especially in riverine communities, indigenous communities, and places that are usually very isolated. And for me, the MBA is going to be great opportunity to level up my knowledge in business and impact at a global level. That's what I'm like really looking forward. I think the content that we are going to receive in this MBA will be really interesting to level my knowledge. And I'm particularly excited for the electives and extracurricular activities, where I think I'll be able to sharpen my skills in social entrepreneurship, also to be more critical about the impact that we are generating as Leader of Light, and also to think about possibilities to grow. And at the same time, the MBA and the Laidlaw network will definitely help me to be a better leader, I think, and more critical leader. So we didn't even start the course yet, but I can already see how diverse and how qualified are my peers at Laidlaw and Zaid. So, and how many people are have this drive to be impact leaders. So I'm really looking forward to be surrounded by these people that will pull me up, you know, to be a better person and a better professional. And I think as a better leader, I could also help Little Flight more.
Perfect, great, thank you. And then Shruti, coming over to you next. So, so in your Laidlaw application, you speak about empowering women entrepreneurs with access to capital, networks, and mentorship. Can you expand on that slightly, just for our audience?
Yeah. So I'll give a little bit of a context. So my work involved working with local farmers and rural artisans. So imagine a rural woman who has been trained to make cheese, world-class cheese like Gruyere or Parmesan, right? So my work involved working with such people, getting them the training, having them build their brand and a product that they can then bring to market, then market that product, grow their brand, and hence empower them to achieve financial stability and graduate them into becoming entrepreneurs, right? So to answer Mandeep's question, what it meant was, number one, this is what I do. And during my entrepreneurial journey, I have, of course, greatly benefited from the mentorship, help, and support and network from other women entrepreneurs who've helped me out. So what I want to do in the future is, number one, pay it forward, because I understand how timely guidance can make a huge difference in someone's life, especially a woman's life, because she has potential, but that ecosystem currently isn't designed to uplift and empower her. So how I, as an entrepreneur and as a global leader, in the future, can help women specifically is by, number one, paying it forward through that mentorship, working with incubators, working with government or through the private, or set up programs that really focus on those niches. And the niche that I am particularly interested in is food sustainability. So working with women food producers to get their their products off the ground and into the market. And yeah, that's what I meant.
Okay, great, thank you, Shruti. So I think we've got a little bit of a flavour, and we can see some of the incredible things that some of our scholars have done. If we go back to when you were going through the application process, and like the scholarship criteria is made up of different components, so it would be great to go around and hear your thought process of approaching the application, and what are your general tips for the audience today. So Shruti, we can come back to you.
Sure.
From you. Oh, Shruti, I think you've put yourself on mute. So.
Oh, sorry. No, we're here. I'm here.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. So just it'd be great to hear from you, Shruti, in terms of your thought process of how you approach the application, and if you've got some tips for the audience today.
I do. So, okay, one thing that I think really helped, so just to put it out there, because I'm a deferred candidate, but I did not get the scholarship when I first applied. So in a way, I applied the first time, did not get it, and then applied the second time after I deferred my admission, and then got it. So from that perspective, I think I've seen both sides of the table, when an application doesn't work and when it successfully has worked. And so my top tip would be that read the questions very carefully. I know it sounds obvious, but each question is asking, and Mandeep, I'm assuming that the application will remain the same.
Yes, I expect so. It would still remain
Yeah.
the same in terms of some of the questions and in terms of the criteria that I just went over today in terms
Okay.
of the information that you need to provide.
Right. So each question is asking the candidate a bunch of things, right? For example, it just doesn't ask what sort of a family background or financial background you have. It asks what was your situation growing up, right? So think of like the kind of a story you want to paint for the committee. It's not just factual, yes, but it's also, you know, like the emotional nitty-gritties, or let's say, you know, how it impacted you as a person and how it shaped you. So I think the first time around, I feel that I was very factual in that sense and showing my need, which later on, as I spoke to scholars who, you know, the first batch and scholars from LBS, I realized that I think what the scholarship committee is really trying to look at is, number one, of course, do you fit the criteria? But number two, are you someone who's, you know, traversed through odds to make you know, like a great situation for yourself right now? Do you show merit? Can you demonstrate impact? And impact doesn't have to be like, you know, probably just helping someone. Impact could also be helping yourself, like building your own career, or regardless of what background or situation you came from, just like, you know, reaching a place that's commendable, which includes getting an admission offer from Said Business School and getting into the Laidlaw community. So each of these milestones demonstrates some merit that you bring to the table and makes you an investable candidate. So look at the application from that point of view.
Okay, thank you, Shruti. So, Lice, if we come to you, so just be great to hear about in terms of your process of approaching the application, and if you have some tips for the audience today.
Mm-hmm. So I think I would divide my tips in 3 steps. The first one, I think, is to read a lot about Laidlaw. So what is the scholarship looking for in a candidate? What are the deadlines? And I mean, basically everything you mentioned here, Mandeep. And then secondly, I would take some time, and not just for Laidlaw process, but I think for the whole MBA process, to reflect and organize your thoughts of why are you doing this? So why are you pursuing an MBA? How important that is for you, and how important it is this scholarship for you? I think this self-awareness process was really important for me. And then third, organize what you want to write and say for each step of the Laidlaw process, explaining how your situation and achievements match with what Laidlaw is looking for, like having some cases in your mind or situations in mind about challenges you have overcome, for example, because you might be asked about this. And also prepare yourself mentally to calm down and to do all of this in an authentic way. So I think this process of self-awareness, it really helps to be authentic, and also to chill, because you are just going to say what actually, you know, happened to you, what's your real opinion. So I think that's what I did, and I would recommend.
Great, thank you. And Lucy, we can hear from you. Oh, you're on mute, Lucy, sorry.
Thank
Great,
you. Yeah, so just to pick up from where Shruti and Liz finished off, I would say that do a bit of introspection, you know, think deeply, like Lai said, about why you are pursuing the MBA, what really it would help you to do. Also, why Oxford? Be very clear about why you are applying to Oxford. I mean, for me, it was they are focused on Africa, developing leaders in Africa, as well as seeing women as part of the next generation of responsible leaders. Oxford has a clear support for women. So understand that, be convinced about that. And the objective of the Laidlaw Foundation is quite clear. They are looking for incredible or high achieving women who have clear potential, have a desire to achieve something. If that sort of thing is your cup of tea, all right, then definitely apply to the Laidlaw scholarship. I mean, for instance, I didn't know about it, and so I didn't apply last year because for me there was no way that I could afford that kind of education. Not to talk about education in a school like Oxford, there was no way I was going to be able to afford it. But incidentally, a friend of mine saw an article on the scholarship and the description of the kind of women they were looking for. And he came to me and said, "This is you, Lucy. You are always advocating for women. You are always talking about how to include women. I think you should apply." So think deeply about what you have done in your own way, promoting other women, supporting other women, advocating for women, and even the seemingly unimportant things, that you brushed off. Think about that. Let that come out in your application. Also, whatever makes you unique. In my case, I've always been an only girl in many rooms, and I've strived to always do my best in those situations. Whatever it is that makes you unique, try and bring that out. It's something that they really cherish. And whatever you are doing on your own, or whatever plans you have on your own to support women going forward. And I think if you do that, if you focus on these things and you project that as well, then and be true to who you are, be true to who you are. There's no need to create an impression, because it's not true to yourself. So be honest up to yourself, do that introspection and make sure you draw out everything that makes you unique, that makes you stand out, because trust me, you're competing against some really brilliant people in the world, so something that makes you stand out and makes you an authentic leader would really help. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Lucy. And then I think it'd be interesting in terms of how did you all think, what do you think made your application successful, I suppose, when you're considering the aims of the award? So I'm not sure who wants to go first. I suppose just thinking about your application and what made you think it was successful. Shriti, you're on. Seems that you're on. If you want to have a go at answering that question.
Yeah. Okay. I think honestly, I'm someone who follows a certain process when it comes to anything. Like I have to put on paper. It could be a blog, it could be an application, it could be an article, anything. And so I feel that feedback really helped because the application has a very strict word count, right? It's asking you for a lot, but the word count for each question is too less, in my opinion. And so that's the challenge. And I think what it really, and you still, I feel like good applications are when in those 200 250 words you're able to like resonate with the other person who's reading, right? Because again, like a lot of people can demonstrate need, but you really need to move the other person to be like, okay, I like this person and I think it's a strong candidate for me to take their application forward. So I feel unless you're a naturally born great writer, it doesn't come easy. So what I did was I went through, I think 7-8 drafts. For each question, I wrote down a bunch of overarching points. Then I wove them into a storyline. And trust me that for each question, when I first wrote my draft, it was about 400 words each. And then I made all my friends, my family through subsequent rounds, like just read each answer over and over. And they would point out things like, okay, this sentence is not flowing with the second one very well. Or, I understand what you're trying to say, but that's because I know you. If someone doesn't know you, they wouldn't understand why you're saying something. So these are small little things, but they really helped get the whole thing into a very beautiful but concise and coherent format. And so I think now, just from an application point of view and not going into the content, I think I'm very happy with the way it's structured and it flows. So my tip here would be, I think what really worked for me is knowing how much time it's going to take and utilizing that time well to have those 7-8 drafts which I knew I needed for an application that I would consider perfect.
Okay, thank you, Shruti. And yes, I know those word limits that we do have can sometimes be quite restricted in terms of the information that in terms of how you're approaching it. But no, some good advice there, some good tips in terms of getting feedback from friends and family. And also, I think it was great to hear that you touched on in terms of being authentic. I think that plays a big part in your application. And in fact, your MBA application, we want to see that you being authentic and being true to yourself. So yes, that's great. Thank you, Shruti.
Actually, if I can add one more thing to it.
Yes,
because I'm a deferred candidate, I'd actually and when I first applied, it was to the inaugural batch of Laidlaw scholars. So there was no precedent, right? Like I couldn't speak to people who had already gotten it. So I got in touch with scholars from Columbia and LBS, etc. And then for this year, when I applied, there was already a batch, whom I could get in touch with. So there were 8 scholars, and I got in touch with all 8 of them. And there were 4 of them who really helped me with my application. So they really helped me approach questions. They helped me figure out, okay, like sometimes people have assumptions. For example, the most common question I get now when people approach me for like application advice is it only meant for people who have need, or is it only meant for people who have worked in the development space? So these are questions that like we have underlying assumptions when we look at a scholarship page, and we seem to imbibe them. So I think the current scholars really helped me wade through that, and their support was extremely valuable for me from step 1 to step like X. So this is something I advise, that take time on your hands, because for me, just that one round of Q&A with someone wasn't helpful. That consecutive rounds of voice notes and emails and then application reviews, all of that really helped.
Great, thank you, Shruti. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just pop a link in the chat to everyone, which is a link to the Laidlaw Scholarship page on our website. And actually you can read blogs, and you can see a video that we recently created of some of our inaugural scholars. So it's great to, I think what Shruti said is really think about networking and reaching out to scholars. It is, in fact, if you were to speak especially to the inaugural scholars, I know that they've spoken about sort of like that sisterhood of network, and I'm sure Lucy, Lice and Shruti, they'll get to experience that in the year ahead that they're coming. And also, like Shruti mentioned, she's really found that helpful in terms of connecting with those scholars, and I'm sure Lucy and Lice and Shruti that you'll probably look to get that this year, where you'll have incoming prospective candidates. So if you think about the shoes that you were in, thinking about that time when you were thinking about your application, and also I think I did see a question in the Q&A function, and in fact any questions that you do have for our panel, please do submit them in the Q&A. It's a great opportunity to hear from them, but I did see that there's a question about is the scholarship only need-based? Is it only based on current financial circumstances? And there is an element to that there is, but then there is also the element, of course, with it being a merit-based scholarship and demonstrating that through your entire application. So thinking about academic-based achievements, thinking about your professional experience, and then also thinking about your GMAT or your GRE. And there's no particular sector, like Shruti said. It's not in terms of entrepreneurship. It's really in any space that you're working on. Can you demonstrate that academic excellence, but then also thinking about that potential, that women leadership, and really thinking about that gender equality. Okay, great. So Lice, actually, it'd be great to hear in terms of I suppose what did you think made your application successful when you're considering the aims of the award?
Mm-hmm. So I totally agree with Shruti about taking your time to make a good application and review it many times and asking for feedback for other people. I also did this a lot and was very helpful, because sometimes we are writing something and we don't see a certain detail or I don't know, feedback from someone from outside is always really good. And also what I think Lucy said something about, like, taking your achievements, even though you might think it's not so huge or something, but I think, and you know, work on that. And I think it's really important, this, like, not to downplay what you have done. So I mean, really reflect about your achievements, your choices in life. And in my case, I was showing the achievements of my organization and also my influence in these achievements. And I think it was important to recognize, you know, what I've done, but also to be humble, to show that's a lot more to learn in the MBA. So how this MBA is going to add to my journey, and you know, so I think this balance between showing what you have done and also being humble was something that I think worked for me. And I think besides that, it's just the self-awareness that I spoke before, like to tell your story in a logical way, and just showing in a clear way how you did your choices, why are you here and why are you doing this. I think this was important for the application to be successful.
Great, thank you. And I liked how you mentioned about, in terms of that balance of being humble. And I think, yes, of course, with an MBA, it's being curious and understanding, I suppose, some of the gaps that you have to fill and what it is that you're hoping to get. Because it is a very collaborative experience. I think if we think about the culture, especially on the Oxford MBA, you're going to be surrounded by so we tend to approximately have a class of around 320. So you're going to be surrounded by some brilliant minds, and it's also thinking about what it is that you can contribute, but also what it is that you can learn. So great, thank you. And Lucy, yes, over to you. If there's you're able to answer the question.
So like Shruti said, reach out to people who can give you some sort of perspective. You know, I mean, I know that I sent LinkedIn messages to people in London Business School just to find some sort of assistance as to what would really help. You know, but I would say that, you know, it's a very interesting question you ask us, Mandeep, because you really don't know what it is that is going to make you stand out or make the difference, or you really impress the committee. But just based off on how my interview went, if I remember correctly, I think that they were very intrigued with the work around the women network that we are working on. We are currently working on in Ghana. You know, that was something that was really intriguing. But also, I think I would say that don't be afraid to give, what's the word? You know, don't be afraid to speak your truth. You know, don't try to impress anybody with right sounding answers. You know, just speak your truth. Like I said, if you're authentic, it comes out very clear what you stand for. The most important thing is that you have values that you're able to project. Don't be afraid to speak your truth, even if it doesn't sound acceptable or politically correct. Speak your truth. Because I remember in my interview, I'm passionate really about the subject of renewable energy and all of that, and it really came out in the interview. And you know, I think that really impressed the interviewer. So don't be afraid to speak your truth. Reach out to people. And I know Lai said, be humble. That's very important. But also be humble, but don't be too modest with your achievements. I know as women, we tend to do that a lot. We tend to underplay our achievements. We tend to think, oh, let me not say this, it's like I'm blowing my own horn. You know, by all means, blow your own horn. Bring out what your vision is. And I don't know if there are any Africans on the call. The way that we write as Africans is very different from the way the Western world writes English. All right. So it's very important when you write your essay, like Shruti and Lai said, to share, to seek feedback from people who don't necessarily know you so well, so that you're communicating clearly what you want to communicate. And you know that with the word limit, when I think I was just like Shruti, I had a very long essay, but when you sit down and you start thinking about it, it comes out very clear what is really important and what isn't, you know. And there's a question in there, like I said, I don't know if it's going to change about your financial situation. I know Shruti said, answer that question, you know, read the question clearly and answer it clearly, but also just paint the picture. I remember when I was writing that I was looking to impress in some way, you know, but just paint a clear picture on whatever struggles you had growing up with, you know, education and all of that. Paint that clear picture, even if it doesn't sound too nice. Just paint the picture, and I think that your authenticity will come out, you know, and have a consistent message throughout. Be clear about it. Your pitch should be consistent throughout, and that should help. So I wish you all the best, and please feel free to reach out to myself, Liza, and any of the scholars. I'm sure that we are all willing to help. Like others helped us, we are also willing to help you make the application easier on you than it was for us.
Great, thank you, Lucy. And yes, it's great to hear that you're already looking to pay it forward. I think that plays a big part in our scholars. I know that the current scholars, they were the same, and I think, and if anything, it's quite nice because, so I suppose we're sort of quite new in terms of Laidlaw, so this is our second year, but over the years we'll get to build quite a nice community, not just of Oxford Laidlaw scholars, but then also there is that wider community as well. Okay, so we can take some questions from the audience. So please feel free. We've got some time for any questions that you do have for our panelists. So I can see that there is a question about, can one also apply for a Laidlaw scholarship at the business schools in addition to Oxford? So I mean, yes, you can. I think that's not something that we're able to comment on. You would need to check their processes and whether they have a Laidlaw scholarship and what their process is. But yes, I mean, that's certainly something that you're welcome to do. We understand that when it comes to thinking about an MBA, that of course that you're looking at other schools. We also have a question about, so in fact there's two parts to this question. I can take the second part of the question, which is, do Laidlaw scholars stay in touch after graduating, and how close is the alumni network? So as mentioned, we are quite new to the Laidlaw scholarship, but if you were to look at those resources that I did post in the chat, you'll see that it really is, and I think I heard Davinia, one of our scholars for this year, she actually referred to it as a sisterhood. She didn't really think that network was the appropriate term. So it really is a very close network, and of course sort of after graduation, and yes, there'll certainly be opportunities to be able to stay in touch. But then going back to the first part was, how do you demonstrate your need for financial assistance? So there is a part in the section of the scholarship application where it's asking you about your finances. So actually, I don't know if any of the panelists will want to just elaborate on that a bit further, and maybe how they were able to approach that section. I believe it's quite self-explanatory, but just great to hear from our panelists in terms of their experience of that. So I don't know, whoever wants to take it first, whoever wants to go off mute, or I can pick on one of you.
I think just something that I could add to this is that I just made very clear that I wanted to continue in the social entrepreneurship journey, which is what I want to do. So for me, an MBA debt would kind of threaten, you know, my future in this. So for me, it was like the current situation. Like I've been doing this for some time now, and it hasn't been easy, you know, financially, and also like the future that I wanted, you know, could be threatened if I had this debt. So I didn't actually see any possibility of doing this MBA without a scholarship. So I just also let this clear in the application.
So my approach was also like similar to Lai's. I basically touched upon 2 points. Number one, my current financial situation in terms of affording the MBA. And number two, how that plan of taking a loan would just not work simply because as a social entrepreneur, given my finances, it would be hard to secure a loan. And second, paying that loan would also be difficult if I want to continue on the same journey after my MBA. So those were for me hard facts, but also it was about the fact that a lot of people change paths in different ways to take up the MBA. And for me, that was not an option without a scholarship, right? So that's exactly what I wrote, but it was demonstrated properly as well. So again, if your situation is different, or it doesn't mean that this is the only thing that works just because 2 scholars said so. Just be honest and authentic, and yeah.
Great, thank you, Shruti.
If I can just add something to what Shruti and Liza both said. I think like Mandeep said, the questions are really quite self-explanatory. So they're asking about your income, your savings, your financial responsibility, the people in your household and things like that. And it becomes very clear from these answers what the tuition, is going to do to you in terms of whether you can afford that or not. And then in your essay, for instance, for me, this is I have a master's degree from Imperial College, and for that as well, it was a scholarship. All right. And so once you demonstrate a situation in your home, perhaps how your parents, and this is a clear example to me, right? How your parents, your financial sponsor managed, or how you managed to take yourself through school. So I would work abroad just to earn enough money and pay my fees and, lean on family to help and all of that. So once you demonstrate that, I think that you would have shown enough that without the Laidlaw scholarship, there's no way you can afford such an education. There was a question about Mandeep, about someone saying they can't see Laidlaw under funding.
Yes, I've just seen that. So you should be able to. So I think in your MBA application, you should be able to see the Laidlaw scholarship application. So I think Aisha, do check back on that. If you should be able to see that section quite clearly. If not, I will in fact, I'm just going to put our contact details in to the chat now. So if not, please do send the team an email and we can certainly look into that for you, but it should be made available on there. So so do have a look into that. And then also I can just see just one final question about, can you share if a candidate is successful if they're being awarded 2 scholarships? So I think I suppose it does depend. I think with the Laidlaw scholarships, so there are different ranges of awards. I think there has been times where candidates have, if they have been successful for 2 scholarships, but that's something that we can certainly, should you get to that process, that's something that we can be able to share. Of course, if you're awarded a full fee scholarship, then and you're awarded, let's say, another partial scholarship, then of course it would just be the one scholarship that you would take, and of course it would be the full tuition fee scholarship. So I hope that clarifies that process.
Mandeep, if I can add to that.
Yes.
So basically, I don't think you guys should think about this right now. Just because each scholarship is tricky enough, and there are external scholarships within the university like Laidlaw School, WHT, and there are site-specific scholarships that are announced with your application. So just see what you can do best, but I think getting to and then figuring out how to manage is probably a cherry on top. And there are systems and processes already in place by the school and the university to figure out what happens in that case. So even if you get 2 or 3 scholarships, you don't have to rack your head. Someone will do that for you. So yeah.
Great, thank you, Shruti. Thanks for clarifying that. And then, great, I can see another question. Can we apply to the Laidlaw Scholarship and the Rhombus Scholarship? Yeah, absolutely. So you can apply to, if there's thinking about, so I know that we're only really speaking about the Laidlaw Scholarship, but Shruti just mentioned a few of the other scholarships that we have. So yes, absolutely. If you're if you find that some of the other scholarships that you're applicable for and you want to apply for, yes, absolutely, you can look to apply for those scholarships. And then also, I think just bear in mind the particular deadlines for particular scholarships, and then also just bearing in mind, I think, to the point that I made earlier in the session, that you need to ensure that you're submitting your MBA application and your scholarship application at the same time. So just bearing that in mind as well when it comes to working on your application and knowing particular deadlines and what it is that you need to do. So I think we're coming to the end of the session. So if there's no further questions, I think it'd just be great just if there's any sort of final tips or any final advice that anyone has for the audience. I know that we've spoken quite a bit about general tips, but if there's any final comments that our panelists want to make. So Lucy, if you'd like to take that question first.
Sure. I mean, I would say, look, if you are in this webinar, then that means you're considering, you know, an MBA. So definitely go for it. Go ahead and apply. It's going to be an exciting time. I'm sure that even the process itself helps you to get to know yourself better. All right, and don't be too hard on yourself. Even if you don't get in, I'm sure most of you will, but even if you don't get in, there are other opportunities. Like Shruti said, you know, she has had to apply again, you know, and a couple of people who have applied again as well. So don't let anything get in the way of your dreams, but surely, hey, go for it. And I wish you all the best. Hopefully the next time it will be us handing over to some of you, you know, and you can all come and join the Laidlaw network, and we have one big sisterhood. I'm excited about meeting Lies, Shruti, and all the other Laidlaw scholars as well. So I mean, all the best. And like I've said, if you need to reach out to any of us, please feel free to do that, and we'll be happy to help.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you, Lucy. Lice?
Mm-hmm. So I think Lucy said, you know, like just trust yourself. I think for me, like we didn't start yet, but I can already see, like through, I don't know, the Slack group and the interactions that I'm having with my peers, how amazing it's going to be, you know, how many amazing people are in the MBA, and how many activities and opportunities there are for students. So I'm really excited. I think it is an amazing opportunity, and also feel free to reach out to me. As Lucy and Shruti said, I also did this when I was applying, and it was very helpful to hear from other scholars, from previous scholars. So I'm also available if anyone needs to talk about it.
Thank you. And then Shruti, if there's any final words from you.
I think we've covered most of it, but you know, as Lucy said, while we apply, we are always, sometimes these insecurities creep in. Like, for example, I just saw a question, like, how much does the GMAT factor in? I think as long as you have a basically decent score, it should be fine, you know, and I would assume anything above, I don't know, a 630, but Mandeep could clarify better. So my point with this is that you'd be thinking of your GMAT score, your need, this, that, etc. I think what I would really focus on is just putting your best story forward, as cliche as that sounds, because that's the hard part, right? You've given your GMAT, now you have the score that you have, but you can do wonders with your story. So just try and put that best story forward and see where it takes you.
Thank you. So yes, some great advice from all, and I think yes, really thinking about your story. And I think yes, I think my advice would be is really thinking about putting your best foot forward. So a big thank you to our panelists today for taking out the time, I'm sure in their busy schedule, and I'm looking forward to meeting you three. So I know that you'll be embarking on your MBA shortly. I know, in fact, Shruti, I know that you're actually in the UK. You're actually in the school today. So yes, looking forward to.
I'm an MBA guy.
So looking forward to be able to meeting you all, and I'm sure that you, if you keep in touch with the school, you'll be able to sort of hear from from Lucy, Lice and Shruti as they go along in their MBA journey and see what it is that they get up to. So a big thank you for you all for dialing in today. I hope that you found this session useful. It will be recorded as well, so we will be following up shortly with the recording. But any questions that you do have, please feel free to get in touch. So I know there was the Laidlaw email that was in the slide that you can get in contact if you've got any questions about any particular questions about the application for the scholarship, and then also any MBA application questions, please feel free to get in touch. But best of luck as you start working on your application. So I expect that some of you are aiming to get that in for our stage 1 deadline next week. So best of luck as you finalize your application, and thank you again. So with that, we'll close the session. So thank you and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.